Hi there, I'm back in Finland, and I've been playing some BattleTech. Well, that's a bit of a lie. I've actually been playing mostly Alpha Strike, and I believe I've gotten on record as saying I prefer BattleTech to Alpha Strike. I just do enjoy the very crunchy and detailed rules and the simulational aspects of BattleTech to the fairly straightforward game of Alpha Strike, but I do think Alpha Strike is a fine game. There's a lot of fun to be had in that game. However, I don't think Alpha Strike is a great game. What I do think, however, is a great game is Alpha Strike on Hexmaps. Let me tell you why I think that is the case. You see, I have a bit of a problem with Alpha Strike, and it is not the fact that the rules are streamlined. That's sort of the point. If the idea of Alpha Strike is for you to be able to play those big games with your BattleTech miniatures, like a company of mechs against a company of mechs, and get it done in a reasonable amount of time, Alpha Strike is the way to go. Unless you want to spend like your entire day playing it if you're like an average BattleTech player or something, or a weekend if it's a really big game. You need to have a streamlined set of rules so you can get those games done. So you have to make sacrifices. My problem with Alpha Strike also isn't the fact that the units are less distinct. Like in classic BattleTech, a mech is going to play differently from a different mech, and mechs are going to play different from infantry and vehicles and whatever flies and stuff. In Alpha Strike, everything is sort of the same, with little tweaks and little special rules and stuff, but it's, everything kind of plays like anything else in the game. And again, that's sort of the point. That's not my problem with the game. You want to be able to play all of your collection in a relatively straightforward sort of way. My problem with Alpha Strike is the fact that it's designed to be a miniature wargame. And don't get me wrong, I do love miniature wargames. That's why I'm here. I loved them as a kid. I love them now. But Alpha Strike being a miniature wargame does bring a couple of issues in the game that do not exist in classic BattleTech, and that is the physicality of miniature wargames. It's measuring tape, checking line of sight, and very fiddly movement. All of those things are things that, in my opinion, slow the game down, which is not what the rule set of Alpha Strike is supposed to do. It's supposed to make the game faster. And I just think fiddling about with measuring tapes and checking lines of sight and trying to determine if you have enough movement inches for whatever maneuver you're doing is not the most exciting part of miniature wargaming. If you've seen a previous video of mine, I talk about what I think is the best part of BattleTech's gameplay, and its movement and positioning. And I just think that the miniature wargaming aspect of Alpha Strike removes a lot of that, maybe most of it, because it becomes very imprecise due to measuring tapes and physical terrain, and imprecise movement. And of course, my proposition on how to fix Alpha Strike's problem, at least to me, is to play it on Hexmaps. I really do think that playing Alpha Strike on Hexmaps actually brings back the importance and excitement of movement and positioning from classic BattleTech back into Alpha Strike, and it feels like a meaningful abstraction of the BattleTech experience as opposed to a completely different game. I do think that Alpha Strike doesn't really feel much like BattleTech. You just use the same miniatures. But Hexmaps do solve that, in my opinion. You see, Hexmaps are very precise. They are very exact. It's a very binary sort of system. Either you have range to something or not. Either you can enter a hex or you can't. Either you have line of sight to something or don't. As opposed to a traditional miniature wargaming system where it's very fiddly, with measuring sticks and people trying to peer over mech shoulders and stuff. It's very fiddly. It speeds up movement because, for example, if your mech can move 10 inches in Alpha Strike, you can move 5 hexes on a hex map, and you just move your mech. You don't have to count turning or anything. That's out of the game. You just, take into account the terrain if you're going up or down levels or into woods or something, and you just move your mech. It's very, very quick. I just feel like playing Alpha Strike on Hexmaps actually allows you to engage with the rules themselves as opposed to messing about with the fiddly bits of wargaming. And it's dead easy too. If you played classic BattleTech, you can learn Alpha Strike on Hexmaps in like 5 minutes. You just need someone to explain how to play the game, and you can translate most of your knowledge from BattleTech into Alpha Strike when playing on Hexmaps. It's dead simple. You know, you can even print out your Alpha Strike cards on Jeff's BattleTech tools and convert the inches to hexes right on the card. You don't need to think about how many hexes something is or isn't. It's so simple. So, here's my suggestion. If you are a BattleTech player and you don't like Alpha Strike, maybe you've played a couple of games, it's not for you, maybe you don't like how it works, you don't like the simplified version of BattleTech, try Hexmap Alpha Strike. You might be surprised by how close to BattleTech it actually feels. And you can just put all of your collection on the table and get a game done in a very quick fashion. And if you do like Alpha Strike and you like playing with miniature terrain and stuff, try Hexmap Alpha Strike as well. You might find that it feels like a bit of a different game than regular Alpha Strike, rules as written miniature wargame Alpha Strike. It brings a different flavor to it, because now you're dealing with exact hex maps instead of the, again, fiddly bits of tabletop wargaming. I think Alpha Strike on Hexmaps is a great game and everyone should give it a try. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for listening and see you next time.